These are some of my favorite shoes so far in 2021. Each of them has different strengths and weaknesses, but together they make up my running shoe rotation. In this video, I'll talk about how you can go about building a shoe rotation, whether you want to have one running shoe or 4 or more. Yo, what's going on everybody? Kofuzi here, and today what I want to talk about is how you can go about building a shoe rotation. And I think the first thing that we can talk about is why you need to buy a shoe rotation, why you would want more than one running shoe. And I think there's 2 main reasons for that. It kind of helps extend the life of your running shoes if you have more than one to kind of alternate with between back and forth, so you're not running in the same one every day. That may be true and it may extend the life a little bit, but I really feel like unless you're running 7 times a week or more, you probably don't need to give your shoes that much rest. But I think the more important reason why you might want to build a running shoe rotation is because you might want to have different kinds of shoes on different days. Easy runs, workouts, really long runs, very short and fast runs. And for each of those runs, different shoes might excel at those specific types of tasks. And the idea is we're going to match specific tasks with specific types of shoes. And that's why I have a running shoe rotation. Now, that's going to lead me to some caveats. You certainly don't need to have this many shoes, and this isn't even all the shoes that I have, but you don't need to have this many shoes in your running shoe rotation. I think probably for most people, the ideal number is going to be 3. For some of you guys who are regulars here, you probably already have about 5 or 6 at this point, and that's totally fine too. One of the big caveats that I want to give you guys is that ultimately at the end of the day, I'm going to give you some guidelines here, but it's your feet and it's your money. Whatever's working for you, whatever's comfortable for you, that's what's right. You don't have to answer to anybody else. The other thing I want to talk about is the fact that I'm not a coach. I'm not any sort of medical professional. So like none of this information that I can give you is coming from a coaching perspective or from like this is better for your body type of perspective. I'm just a dude that runs a lot, and I focus primarily on marathons and half marathons just to put a little bit of context on some of the shoe choices that I'm going to be presenting you with you today. The last thing I want to talk about before I really jump into everything is some disclosures. Some of these shoes were provided for me for the purpose of review. Some of them I bought myself. Frankly, a lot of the time I have to go look it up. I have to check my emails to see how I got a shoe. For the most part, I usually don't remember how I got a shoe, but from the interest of financial disclosures, some of them were provided. However, no one is paying me to make this video, and no one has paid to have their shoe included in this video, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with those disclosures and caveats out of the way, let's talk about building a shoe rotation. First, let's start with if you wanna build a 1 shoe rotation. Let's say you just wanna have 1 shoe. You don't know how into running you are, or you just don't wanna buy more than 1 running shoe. Totally fine. I ran that way for many, many years. If that's what you're gonna do, I think the 1 shoe that you should have is a daily trainer. Now, a daily trainer is kind of like your do-it-all shoe. It can do a little bit of everything really well, but it's not kind of like the best at any one specific kind of task. 2 of my favorites for 2021 right now are the Hoka One One Mach 4 and the Asics Nova Blast 2. Now these are 2 shoes that are a little bit on the more cushion side as far as daily trainers go, but I like them to use for kind of like your everyday run. Like the bulk of the run, more than half of the runs of the week are gonna be in your daily trainer, even if you have a multiple shoe rotation. And if you only wanna have that as the 1 shoe in your rotation, my first 2 marathons, I only had 1 shoe in my rotation, or I might have had like the same shoe twice because I like the 1 shoe so much. I might have done that, but I had 1, basically the same shoe in my rotation for my training, for my workouts, and for my races as well. And that's totally fine, whether you're a beginner or whether you've been doing this for a long time. So now let's talk about a 2 shoe rotation. I think if you're gonna have a 2 shoe rotation, the foundation is gonna be that daily trainer. So you still wanna make sure you have that. The next shoe that I think most people should get after a daily trainer is a workout shoe, something that you're gonna run a little bit faster in, whether those workouts are short, like maybe you're running cross country or doing 5Ks, those workouts are gonna be shorter than some of your other runs, and they're gonna be a lot faster too. Or if you're running for a half marathon or marathon, those workouts might be a little bit speedier than your everyday runs, but they're also gonna be very long as well. And so I have 2 kinds of speed shoes that I'm going to be looking at today. One is going to be the New Balance Rebel version 2. I think this is a fantastic speed shoe. And one of my other favorites is going to be the Endorphin Speed. This is the Endorphin Speed version 2. Now what these shoes have are, they're a little bit more kind of a race fit, so they're going to be a little bit more snug in terms of how they fit on your foot. Some of the comforts of your daily trainer might kind of go away, because think of it like, you know, like a race car. Your regular car has very cushioned seats, there's air conditioning, there's radio, cruise control, cup holders, all those kinds of comforts. A race car strips a lot of that away. The seat belt is a lot more snug, and you might not even have air conditioning in like a race car. So like, think of it that way. Some of those things go away because you're looking more towards performance. The other things that these shoes are going to have, they might not be comfortable for when you're going for your regular everyday runs. They might feel a little bit firm, or they might feel like they don't really have as much cushion underfoot right away. So like, you know, kind of doing like the walk around the running store test might not be the best way to figure out if that speed shoe is going to be right for you, because these kinds of shoes really don't perk up until you start moving a little bit faster. So think of it again using like a car analogy, like the suspension on a race car is going to feel really stiff if you're just using it to get groceries, but if you put it on a racetrack and have some of those G-forces that you're hitting into some turns, that's when that suspension really starts to be doing its intended purpose. Same thing with these speed shoes. Once you get moving a little bit faster, that's when those shoes really start to come to life and they make a lot more sense. And they're a lot easier to run faster in. So with the Rebel version 2, this I feel like is a little bit more connected to the ground. And when I want to go fast, this is a shoe that I would definitely reach for, because it's very lightweight and I feel like I can really just move quickly in it. The foam in the midsole has a nice springy sensation to it. A shoe like the Endorphin Speed, the version 2, is a shoe that has a very nice tall stack height, which is something that I like for my running shoes. Again, another personal preference. And it even has a bit of a shank inside it to give it a little bit more rigidity, so that way when you are running hard and you're pressing hard into the ground, so that way when you're pushing off, a lot of that snaps back for you. So again, it's going to feel a little bit more like a race car, and it's going to drive a little bit more like a race car too. That's the next shoe that I think you should get if you're going to have a 2-shoe rotation, because you can use that shoe for your workouts and you'll be able to race in those as well. A lot of people race in these speed workout type of shoes. I see that all the time. Totally acceptable to do that. You will be in good company if you do that. So you can kind of get two kinds of uses, and you might only use this type of shoe maybe like once, maybe twice a week, and that's okay. That's kind of like how you're supposed to be using it. And then the rest of the week, you'd be using your daily trainer. So that's how those two shoes are going to fit together. All right, moving into a 3-shoe rotation. Now, I think that there's one way to go about it that I think is a little bit more sensible, but I'm going to tell you the more fun way to go about it if you're going to build that 3-shoe rotation. So again, we're going to build on the same building blocks, have your daily trainer, have your speed shoe, and then it's time for the fun stuff. It's time for a race shoe, because you might want something that's even more purpose-built, something that's even more special for those race days, because those are the things that you've put on the calendar. You've been looking forward to it for weeks, maybe even months. And now it's time to like really pull out all the stops and reach for something really special. And there's two that I'm really enjoying this year. One is the Adizero Adios Pro 2. This has a premium foam in the midsole that again is gonna feel a lot like the speed shoes, where at slower paces, maybe not so great, your everyday paces, don't necessarily want to reach for this shoe, but it's got a carbon fiber plate, again, to give it some extra rigidity so that when you compress the shoe, it gives you a lot back. And the upper is super stripped down and designed for speed. The other shoe that I'm really enjoying also in this category right now is the Asics Meta Speed Sky. This is one that I recently ran a race over in Massachusetts in. Had a lot of fun doing that. Again, it's got a premium super foam in it, and it has a carbon fiber plate. These are the kind of racing shoes that you'll see a lot of people wearing. So that's the 3-shoe rotation. Now let's move on to if you want to have 4 shoes in the rotation. And then again, we're going to build daily trainer, speed shoe, race shoe, and then the 4th category is going to be your max cushion shoe. Now, I really think from the sensible perspective, having a max cushion shoe is something that you'd want to put in kind of like a 3-shoe rotation, but it's not as, I guess to me, it's not as fun. Max cushion shoes are not my favorite type of shoe to run in. but these kinds of shoes are the ones that you'll want to recover in. So let's say you've gone out and had a really fun time racing. These shoes are built for going fast and getting every last bit of performance out of you, but that might put a little bit of a toll on your body. So when you're kind of get back into running after that big race, you're gonna want something that's gonna be easy on the body and very comfortable for putting in a lot of either recovery miles, or maybe for some of your longest miles, maybe you're trying to run longer than you have before, getting ready for your first marathon. That's where a max cushion shoe really comes in handy. This is the New Balance Fresh Foam More version 3. Some of the things that you notice about it is it's got a super thick stack height and it's got a lot of padding all over the place. Frankly, I feel like a lot of the padding is kind of like unnecessary, but it is kind of a signature in this subgenre of running shoe that everything's definitely geared more towards comfort. And you're not really gonna worry as much about pace and performance in these kinds of shoes, because what you're trying to do with these shoes is get more miles in, be able to continue building your aerobic base, or get back into running after a long workout, or perhaps after a little bit of a hiatus from running, without necessarily worrying about how fast you're doing it. Because for those kinds of run, the pace really doesn't matter at all. So that's something that you might want to consider for your third shoe in your rotation. But I know a lot of people want to jump right to the race shoes, and I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. For the 4-shoe rotation, I think a max cushion shoe is a really nice one to put in there. So you might not use all these shoes in a single week. In any single week, I think maybe you would use the daily trainer, you would use your workout shoe, and maybe the day after your long run for the week, maybe you'd be in the max cushion shoe. And every once in a while, however often you're racing, that's when you're in the race shoe. So I think that's kind of like how it can break down on a weekly basis. But I feel like a rotation like this is going to not only extend the life of any one of your shoes, it's also going to be a lot more fun for you as you're training, as you're getting ready for those workouts, and as you're getting for those races. Now, again, there's no hard and fast rules for any of this. Some people might have 2 different daily trainers and a speed shoe, or 2 different daily trainers and just a race shoe that they do all their workouts in. A lot of people are going that route as well, but you've got a lot of options here. And so hopefully when I talk about shoes in other videos, whether this is a speed shoe, this is a max cushion, or a daily trainer, or a racing shoe, that all starts to make sense as to why these categories exist and how they can relate and interact with each other. If you have any questions about any of the stuff that I talked about today, feel free to put them in the comments down below. And if you want to tell me about your rotations or have questions about your rotations, please come by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube. I'd love to talk to you guys about your shoe rotations there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are having fun out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, what's going on?